Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Steamboat Institute, and we are here with another episode of our Facebook Live interview series. And I'm Erica Anderson, your host, and today I'm speaking with Iraq War veteran and Turning Point USA spokesman Rob Smith. Thank you so much for joining us, Rob.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, well, it's an exciting day for you because your book was released today. Congratulations.
Yes. Oh my God. Such a big moment. The book, Always a Soldier, Service, Sacrifice, and Coming Out as America's Favorite Black Gay Republican, hit stores everywhere today. I've been on the promo trail, and I'm just really excited to get the story out into the world and that people are reading it and all that stuff.
Yeah, I saw you're on Fox News this morning, so you kicked off the day with
Bright
with a
and,
bang there.
bright and early. Bright and early.
Hey, you do what you got to do. I think their early morning show starts at like 5 a.m.
Yeah, so you can do Fox and Friends first. Like they're from 4 to 6, and I've done them as early as 4:15 a.m., which was very,
Holy
very
moly.
weird. And then I think Fox and Friends itself is like from 6 to 9. So they got me in
Yeah.
there.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I love that you are just not holding anything back with that title of your book. It's awesome. Can you give us just a little snapshot of what the book is all about?
Yeah, so I like to describe the book as Moonlight meets American Sniper. It is about 70% Iraq War memoir and 30% political commentary. And so at the very beginning of the book, it's really about serving in the military. It's about growing up in Akron, Ohio, kind of floating around after high school, and then making the decision to join the military right after high school, and then kind of like going through basic training, all that stuff, going to the Iraq War, just everything, and then about 70% of the way through it turns into more political commentary about this political moment that we're in right now. I talk about coming out as conservative, the backlash that I got, some from the right and the left, which is very interesting. And then talk about a lot about the black vote in 2020. I talk a lot about sort of the far left LGBTQ cult, as I like to call it. I am a gay man. I've been an out gay man for a very long time, but I'm not a part of the far left LGBT. Their agenda is not what I'm about. So I talk a lot about that. And finally, I kind of just wrap it up about trying, because this is about trying to bring Americans together, right? We are so divided and we are so separated right now. I make no bones about being a Republican, but I also make no bones about loving America. And I think that the future of this country depends on us elevating voices from all sides of the spectrum that lead with a love for country,
Mhm.
and don't lead with being ashamed of America or being ashamed of our history or trying to erase our history, which is what a lot of people are doing right now.
Well, and I've heard you say that, that your participation in the military was really what built your love for the country. So,
Yeah.
can you tell me a little bit about that evolution?
Yeah, so the evolution was so when you serve in the military, and a lot of people don't realize that the military is one of the diverse workforces that you'll ever see anywhere in the country, right? We have 30% of enlisted soldiers are African American. It's the only place a lot of people will actually ever in their life have a black boss. And when you are serving with people and it's built on that kind of meritocracy, where it's not really about these identities, it's not about race or sexual orientation or any of these things, but it's really about your combined commonality as Americans and as American soldiers. You kind of break through that stuff and you kind of learn how to start seeing yourself as American. I talk in the book about serving in Iraq, and obviously I'm a black man. There were black people in my unit, there were white people, there were Latino people, there were Asians. We were a hodgepodge. But when you go overseas, you are seen as American first, and all of these other things are secondary or even tertiary. And that is a very particular experience, because I think that sometimes in America, particularly on the left, they want people to see themselves as all of these identities first before you are American. And serving with these people and serving with people that would today be described as racist, redneck, Trump supporting Republicans, et cetera, right, by the left. But having served with these people and having gotten to know the humanity of these people and trying to portray their humanity in my book, you realize that we are not the stereotypes that people try to portray us as on either side of the political spectrum. We're all far more complicated than that. And that's
Mhm.
the story that I'm trying to tell in this.
Yeah, I think that's really of your what you went through in that experience to where you stand today. Now this year it was like for the first time, I've never seen this before, on the 4th of July. I saw so many people questioning whether or not we should be celebrating. I saw this on Instagram all over the place. Maybe you did too.
Oh yeah.
Now, as someone who served this country, how does that make you feel to see people just even questioning whether we should be, proud of our country at all?
It makes me feel honestly that we've got, as in the words of the great Larry Elder, we've got a country to save, right? A country cannot survive, a country cannot thrive, a country cannot continue to exist if you've got a vast vocal majority of the population openly loathing it, openly hating it, and openly refusing to celebrate in these traditions that bring us together as a country and as a culture. And I've always understood the questions that a lot of people in the society have about the history of America. I understand a lot of the critiques that people have about the history of America and as our founders and of our founders, because we have to be open about the fact that this country has not always been amazing to blacks, to women, to Latinos, to gays and lesbians, to a lot of different people. But I feel, and what I'm trying to do is to have that conversation and still say, hey, you can be a member of all of these different identity groups or all of these different immutable characteristics, right? Because you
Mm-hmm.
don't choose being a woman. I don't choose being gay. I don't choose being black. I don't choose any of these things. These are things that we were born into, but they should not dictate how you feel about the country that you live in. And that's what seeing all of that anti-American sentiment that comes, particularly around our American holidays, like our Memorial Days, like our Fourth of July, like our Veterans Day. It makes me feel like we've got some real hard work to do in the conversations that we have about this country.
Yeah, and I know I read that you did some activism on Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
I did.
And so, I mean, what would you say about, I mean, because you saw something that you didn't like, and then you went out and you did something about it. And so, I guess, could you talk a little bit about encouraging people to do, I guess, activism in a way that is actually proactive? Because as we've seen, that policy has been changed. So talk
Yes.
to me a little about that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because this is the 10-year anniversary of getting arrested protesting Don't Ask, Don't Tell in the Obama White House, by the way. And there was a time, and even when I was on the left, I was never really far left. I saw something that was unfair. I figured out a way to go to change it, and that was rooted in actual policy, right? So when we were protesting this policy, we had an idea of how to change it, and we were actually effective in getting that policy changed. And now we have a generation of gays and lesbians that are able to openly serve and to serve their country honorably. The what I see right now when we talk about these different movements that are taking over the country, we'll just say the Black Lives Matter movement in general, right? So we'll talk about Black Lives Matter. There are a lot of people who are number one angry, number one confused, number one super confrontational to their fellow American. It's not about we need to present some legislation. We really need to change the way things are done in this country. It's about we need to tear this down and we need to build this up. And it's rooted in an anti-American hatred. And I think that is really dangerous right now. And you have a lot of people, honestly, that just want to feel like they're a part of something via social media, and these are their only ways to do it. They feel helpless, they feel inert, they feel impotent, they feel like they don't have a voice. So this is the way that they make their voices heard, right? But it is in a way that is super negative. It is in a way that is very destructive. It is in a way that is not constructive, both to the society we live in or in terms of changing anything legislatively. And it's also not something that is rooted in trying to save America and trying to form America into, in the words of one of our founding fathers, a more perfect union. It's rooted in destruction. And movements that are rooted in destruction are always doomed to fail. The great civil rights movement of the 1960s, this was not rooted in destruction. This was rooted in elevation, in
Hmm.
evolution. The gay and lesbian rights movement of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, this was rooted in evolution and not
Hmm.
destruction. So you
Hmm.
can't have these movements that are rooted in destruction. It's just not going to work. It's going to
Yeah.
make, look, it's going to make a lot of people on the far left very wealthy. It's going to make a lot of people who have made their entire careers selling very unstable people the lie that racism is the reason that they're losers. But it's not going to do anything to elevate our country and to save America.
Yeah, I have a couple more questions I wanted to ask you related to everything in your book. Number one, I read that you have said that coming out as a conservative was actually, in a way, harder than coming out as gay. And so I was wondering if you could just touch on that and what you
Yeah.
meant by that.
Well, what I meant by that, and there's a chapter, I think it's chapter 14, which is coming out as America's favorite Black gay Republican. That's when you switch over to the political commentary.
Hmm.
Coming out as a conservative in 2020 is definitely harder than coming out as gay. And I know because I've done both. And when I came out as gay, there wasn't a loss of friendships. There was some tough times with my mother that I go into in the book because she wasn't immediately supportive. She's since come around. But when I came out as conservative, it was one of the most, it was one of the most, I don't want to say destructive, but it uprooted my entire existence in
Mm.
a way that coming out as gay didn't. So when I came out as conservative, and particularly a conservative supporter of the president, I lost all of my friends. I just recently lost my best friend of 15 years. You have you become politically toxic to people, and I get
Hmm.
messages all the time, and it's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, and particularly that chapter is that you have people saying I am afraid of getting fired. I have mothers that DM me saying that their children have cut off all contact with them. This is really awful stuff. So
Hmm.
coming out as conservative Republican nowadays, and particularly somebody who does support the president, is a very destructive thing for a lot of people's personal lives, personal and professional lives right now. So yes, it's like coming out as conservative Republican is the new coming out.
Hmm.
And I always say this, I always say conservative Republican Trump supporter because there are some people that are like, oh, it's okay that you're a conservative just as long as you're not a Trump supporter.
Right.
Oh, it's okay that you're a Republican. We have no problems with them, but as long as you're not a Trump supporter. So that has become the new coming out, and it's become a very kind of destructive force in people's lives just to exercise their First Amendment right of free speech and our right as all Americans to vote for whomever we choose.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. That just makes me think. I used to work for Mike Pence on Capitol Hill, and sometimes in normal life, you would think it would be a proud thing to say, like, I used to work for the vice president, and I am proud that I used to work for the vice president. But at the same time, it's not something that everybody thinks is really cool anymore,
No,
and
no, it's not.
and so I, maybe don't mention that as much as I would just because of the political climate these days. Last question for you, Rob. I just want to know, how did you, what is it that kind of launched you into conservatism to where you got to the point where you were going to come out as a conservative? What changed your mind or got you to that point?
Well, what got me to the point, there were a couple of things. Number one was the left's reaction to the post-Orlando terrorist attack in 2016 that where terrorists killed 49 gays and lesbians in a gay club. It was an inert, toothless reaction that I saw from the left. And it started to make me think. I was like, well, wait a minute. I'm gay. Like, these people are supposed to have my back, and they seem too concerned with language and semantics and not really wanting to piss off or make certain religious populations angry. And I thought that was a very weak response. I saw the illegal immigration conversation happen. I say this in my book that Democrats have traded blacks for illegal immigrants, and it's absolutely true. So I saw that. And I also, the left became, and granted, this was something that was a couple of years coming, but it wasn't something that I really made a decision to do until around like late 2017, early 2018, because the left was becoming a place that just didn't represent me anymore. These people don't represent me. These drag queen story hours don't represent me. The radical LGBTQ club doesn't represent me. These people rioting in the streets in support of quote unquote Black lives, that doesn't represent me. These things don't represent me anymore. Okay, and so I stopped believing and internalizing the idea that just because I had these immutable characteristics, that it automatically meant that I'm supposed to be on the left or be a Democrat in perpetuity. Democrat is not stamped on my birth certificate next to African American. And also, when I really started to getting into, conservative values, when it starts getting into love of country, when it starts getting into self-reliance, when it starts getting into self-discipline and entrepreneurship and all of these things that I really believed in, it just turns out that those principles are more in line with who I am outside of any of this other stuff.
Hmm.
And that's when I decided to kind of make the switch, and I wanted to inspire other people to look beyond all of this different stuff and see who you really are politically. I'm not selling conservatism to anybody. I'm not selling be a Republican. But what I'm selling is the idea to think for yourself and don't be pressured to be in any group based on immutable characteristics that you cannot control. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's such a great message. And I think so many people are going to resonate with that and really appreciate what you've done, stepping out, putting yourself out there. I mean, kind of having to be brave about it. So thank you, Rob, for your time. I know you have a busy day, so we're going to let you go, but we just wish you all the best of luck with your book. And everybody, Rob is going to be at the Freedom Conference. So if you're coming, you can meet him there, buy a copy of his book.
Yes, yes. So I'm going to be at the conference, the Freedom Conference next month. Super excited about it. I'm going to be speaking. I'll be speaking a lot about some of the political aspects of this book. Looking forward to that. And then doing a signing and meeting all you guys out there. So thank you guys so much for the opportunity, and can't wait to see you next month.
Thank you.